Hello and welcome to another episode of Unmasking Leaders. Today we're really delighted to be joined by Nikki and Su. Hi Nikki, hi Sue. How are you both?
Hello. Very well, thank you. Pleased to be here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Obviously we want to get straight into it and we want to ask you something kind of light. Whoever wants to take this question, please feel free. If you could sum up quirky in one word, what would it be and why? And then we'll actually get into quirky in a minute.
Okay. All right, I'll take this one. So I would say revolutionary. We are a purpose-led company first, and we just happen to make powdered plant milk. So our focus is really about nutrition, sustainability, and social impact. But we know that we can revolutionize the plant-based industry, or the plant milk industry in specific, with our 5-ingredient powdered plant milk. And I might as well tell you what it is. Very simply, it's a blend of oats, pea protein, coconut MCT, calcium, and vitamin B12. That's it. So it's completely additive free. It's got no artificial kind of sugars, gums, etc. You can use it directly as a creamer. You can shake it with water for 10 to 15 seconds and have fresh plant milk wherever you are, whenever you want it, however you want it. So that is the revolution.
Okay, so to take it back a little bit before, what kind of drew you to both to being like the world of entrepreneurship? And obviously, I know maybe that's going to start with the good P, so I'm sure it will.
So just to tell you a bit of our background. So Nikki has spent the last 12 years in banking and finance, and she often felt like a small cog in a very big wheel. And I, on the other hand, was a dentist by profession. So health has always been my key focus. So when we both were transitioning to a more plant-based diet, what we noticed was that like one recurring issue, like many plant milk alternatives in the market were like labeled as free from, but they were often like packed with, additives like gums, acetyls, emulsifiers, etc., etc. So it became very clear to us at that point that there was a definite gap in the milk alternative market space for a product that was not only healthy and clean, but also planet friendly at the same time. So as friends who shared like common ground, we have 4 daughters between us, and having dairy allergies in our families, we had like a mutual drive to create something better. And so we realized that we were in like a unique position to take on this challenge. So at that time, we saw like an opportunity to solve this problem and make like a meaningful impact. And in doing so, we hoped to change the world, but in our own very small way. So that's how the Good P was born, and just setting the foundation for Quirky, I guess.
I think I remember when I first spoke to you guys how obvious it was, like the two of you together as a great friendship, but also founded on something where you can both kind of complement each other, probably in your backgrounds and your skills, and then like pure passion obviously as well comes into it. I'm sure you guys don't get much sleep.
Lots of bags under here, under the makeup.
So Quirky is such a bold name. How did you come up with it, and what does it represent to you both?
Yeah, so we went back and forth with the name for such a long time because we really wanted something that could capture our personalities. It was quite playful, memorable, but something that was a bit different and kind of put a smile on people's face and thought, oh, I like that. It's thinking outside the box, or thinking outside the carton, I should say. And for us as well, it's got quite a deeper meaning because Sue and I have often had conversations where we felt that we don't always fit in, or we've not felt a kind of sense of belonging in certain situations. And we kind of thought, I think everyone's had those moments in life. And so it was about embracing that and celebrating it and saying, you know what, be different, be you, be quirky, and be proud of it.
I really like that empowerment message behind the name. That's really great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So about the process, what were some key milestones in bringing Quirky to life? Were there any sort of like aha moments or challenges that shaped the product?
Well, where do I start really, to be honest? Because, just finalizing the formula took us 9 months in the making. So it literally felt to both of us like we're having a third baby. The key things, I think, were talking to our consumers, understanding the trends, like what do they want? Is it sustainability? Is it convenience? Is it clean ingredients? And do those findings then align with our own brand values or our own personal values as well? And then from there to then us sitting down like on a blank canvas and like bouncing off ideas, but in keeping in mind those factors like how do we want people to associate with it? Is it approachable? But at the same time, is it fun and playful as well? So I think the messaging and the personality we wanted for the brand was the key factor in coming up with the name Quirky. We also, looked at things like what we want the packaging to look like, what's the messaging going to be, and what channels do we want to sell into? Is it going to be B2B? Is it going to be D2C? Is it going to be both? So all those factors we had to like keep in mind. I would say eventually what we want is to continue developing and evolving as a brand and trying to be as inclusive to our customers as possible, hearing their feedback and keep on offering better and better products. That's eventually what our aim is. So coming back to the hurdles, I would say two. First was NPD, because that was like a really big one for us, because we both wanted to ensure that we stick with our values of local ingredients as much as possible without compromising on the taste and the overall performance of the product, but also at the same time ensuring that all the commercials fall into the right place as well. And second, I would say the second hurdle was to ensure that our current clients had like a smooth transition from the liquid milks to the powders, which I'd say has got an impressive response so far, and hopefully it stays that way, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like it must be so much easier to go from having like a liquid milk to something that basically the shelf life must improve massively. Is that correct?
Yes, this one's got a 24-month shelf life compared to the milks. And I feel like when we were discussing this, we had, when we were discussing like what are the positives with the powders compared to the milks, there were so many positives and so many tick boxes. And it felt like that was like we had got what people actually want, what our consumers wanted. So I think it all came up to us as like a light bulb moment, to be honest.
Also, the fridge space, it's another thing that I think about, that
Yeah.
you don't have to consider that. Pints and pints of alternative milk in the fridge. And obviously more and more people are going alternative too. So
Exactly. So when you go to like a normal household now and you like open their fridge, there's like so many different milks or alternative milks there, and it takes up so much space as well. Like people don't realize it, but now slowly people are realizing that. So
I was going to say this is quite interesting because we had initially launched the pouches in this kind of 1 kilo format made for kind of commercial kitchens and our B2B clients. And we went to a trade show kind of end of last year and we were showcasing these, and we actually got this overwhelming response from a lot of buyers and people that were there saying, I want this at home because we have, my daughter drinks this and my son drinks this and my husband wants this. And there was all different types of milks, but when they were traveling, they were commuting, going on holiday, going camping, it's really difficult to carry liquid milks that essentially are 90 something percent water. They're quite heavy, can burst, etc. And so it's just super convenient. So no fridge space, stick it in your pantry or dry cupboard when you don't want it. If you're on the move, you stick it in your suitcase or your bag, etc. And you don't have to worry about your end destination, whether they're going to have the milk that you want, especially if you have allergies in your family. So it's designed to be super convenient, and we've been quite blown away by the response actually.
like I recall when you guys kind of went quiet for I don't know how many months working on it. It's really exciting to hear that it's obviously been received really well. So, but obviously I can imagine how it is taste and experience that probably often drives consumers' decisions. What would you say customers can expect when they try Quirky for the first time?
I think they're pleasantly surprised. I think that's probably the main feedback we've had. We've tested it and done taste tests, etc., with consumer focus groups. And when you think of a powder, you don't really associate the words creamy or tasty necessarily. Kind of think, oh, it's going to be dry, bitty. I'm not really sure. But we always kind of get this moment where people are a little bit uncertain, they try it, and then they're like, oh, that's really surprised me, and that's better than what I get from the supermarket, and it's got like a really clean feel. There's not an aftertaste to it. So yeah, I would say pleasantly surprised.
I'm now intrigued to try it actually, as
Me
I
too.
have to admit,
We'll send you
yeah,
some.
Have you faced any unexpected hurdles with the launch of Quirky? How would you say you've navigated those moments?
Yeah, we kind of we always say it's a bit like raising a baby. It takes a village, and we realized very quickly that you need the right people around you. We learned that from our first range of products, and even more so with this, because we were creating a world's first. So no one's ever done a plant based powdered milk made with oat and pea protein before, and so it was kind of we had to make sure we used, we had the correct manufacturing partner to make sure that they understood our vision, our values, they could get us on board, they could support us as we grow. We needed to find the right packaging partner so that they could also understand what we wanted for our consumers, to make sure the pouches were user friendly, to make sure the artwork was all going to fit and the messaging was going to come across, the right design team to capture what we wanted to say, because when you're on a supermarket shelf, you have milliseconds to make an impression on a new consumer, and so that was super important for us, to make sure that it stood out and that we were giving the right message straight away. And it was really, as Sue mentioned, making sure that all of that fit in. We weren't compromising on any of our brand values. But the commercials worked as well, because normally when you're launching a new product, you're not going to do a mass production. You start off really small, and that is obviously a lot more costly. And so it's kind of putting all of that together. And it's quite taxing as well, a kind of mentally, and from initiation and like creating and deciding what that product's going to be, to actually getting to fruition and finalizing the formula, and doing signing off all the legals and the design, and then actually getting it to shelf. And so what we also realized sometimes, that Sue and I can be in a bit of our own bubble, and it was so important from kind of a mental health point of view to surround ourselves with positive people, and people that could just really keep you sane across along the journey. Really, that was quite key for us, wasn't it? Our network.
Entrepreneurship, how challenging it is, and probably all that, like you can't sleep at night because your brain won't stop, and that must be really hard to navigate too.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of things going on social media, a lot of people celebrating things. I think actually we're seeing a change in that as well, and it's quite refreshing to see people posting quite authentic things about when it's not always going right. And I think for us, we still find that quite hard to do sometimes, and show that vulnerability, but it is so important, and having that network of other founders that understand what you're going through. And you mentioned Izzy waking up at night. We have had months of that where we've woken up at 2-3 o'clock every morning and suddenly thought, oh my gosh, we didn't think of this, or we need to do that, or did we check that with the legal team, or and it really takes a toll on your health mentally and physically, and yet we're creating something to promote health and well-being, so we really needed to take a step back and make sure we were practicing what we were preaching.
I think there's a real trend with that as well, where people are talking about the workspace, and obviously you guys are kind of like your own like workspace, but it's how you can probably help one another to be able to do that switch off or switch on. And you probably find as well, you both complement each other and have to really look out for each other as well.
How would you say Quirky differs from when you started the Good Pea?
I think Quirky feels bolder to us. We're taking more risks, we're having more fun with it. And it's really personal, actually, this journey. We've poured everything into it. We're super aligned with all of the brand values on a personal level, and I think we've really thought about the social impact that we're having as well. we work with a foundation with KWERKY called Akshaya Patra, and they are based in India and in Watford in the UK. And with every pouch we sell of KWERKY, we contribute to feeding a child in need. And that's something that's really important to us as founders and as mothers. And I think as well, with this journey, we've really been very pedantic about our formula before releasing it to the public. And the kind of key question that we've decided that we will always ask and make sure the answer is yes to before we release something to the market is, would we feed this to our children, our own children? And I think that has really helped us stay away from additives, anything that is ultra processed, because it's a huge issue. We know that there's 32 health issues directly being contributed to from having consuming ultra processed foods, and that includes heart disease, cancer, etc. And so this just feels very personal to us from kind of a health point of view and a social impact point of view, and embracing who we are. So I think KWERKY is kind of, it's me and Su personified and everything we believe in.
We often talk about how there's a lot of noise going on all the time for people in terms of messages coming through all the time, where we're all getting notifications, emails. It must be quite hard for you guys to almost be able to break through that noise as well.
Yeah, I think it is. There's so much information out there, and it's not always true. And I think recently there was an article that had come out in the news about a glass a day keeps bowel cancer away, or something like this, of dairy milk, right? And actually, it was totally misconstrued, because what they were trying to say is it was the calcium element in that was contributing. It wasn't actually the dairy, but people can see that off face value and be like, oh, I need to drink cow's milk. So there is so much out there in the media that isn't written properly, that doesn't educate people properly. Everybody's doing email marketing, there's social media everywhere, so it's super difficult to break through that noise. But I think the way that Su and I are trying to get through to our customers is just being really authentic, being ourselves. We don't post things for the number of likes that we're going to get. We are just genuine about our messages. Hopefully that resonates with some people. They might tell their friends, and we're quite fortunate that we've got built up quite a decent following from the Good P previously, that have followed us with KWERKY and our social channels. We're connected with quite a few people, and so hopefully those messages are coming out. But I think the only thing you can do, and also be different from the kind of the big household names and brands that are out there, one thing that we have that they don't have is that foundership and that authenticity, where we can directly speak to our customers. Because often in the big kind of companies, you don't really know who's at the top. You don't know what their beliefs are. You don't know if they're living and breathing what they're selling. And so, yeah, hopefully that will pay off for us, just being us.
If you could look back now, like to the beginning of your journey, what's one thing you would probably say to yourselves, almost as like a heads up, or information you wish you'd known? Is there anything in particular that stands out?
Yeah, I think trust the process. We were very green going into it. It's when we launched the Good P, and we kind of had this very unrealistic view. We're going to get this amazing product out and everybody's going to love it, and then the big supermarkets are just going to take us on, and we're going to sell out and be in every household, and it doesn't work like that at all. But what we have learned is it's not about overnight success. It's about doing things that you really believe in. Trust that process. It's not going to be linear, but it will be worth it. Take the risks. And I think key thing is to be tenacious, be resilient, and constantly iterate, because sometimes we pivot 2 or 3 times a month. There's not going to be a period where we're just stagnant, but that's okay, and that has to become our norm. And so we've got really comfortable with that, you know, whenever we're doing things, we're constantly evolving and looking out, but also drowning out the noise. Sometimes you can get quite overwhelmed with you know, what other companies are doing, what your competitors are doing, how great things are going, but actually just live your own journey.
That's really important, because often when you're creating something, you can kind of compare yourself to what other people are making, but that just kills so much creativity and uniqueness of what you yourself are doing. So I think trusting the process is always the best way
and
to do it.
there's enough space for everyone.
Absolutely,
If you think about how many oat milks are on the market, you know, and they're all doing great. So there's space for everyone. I think, you know, do it your way.
Absolutely. So looking ahead, what would you say is next for Quirky? Are there any exciting plans or collaborations or expansions in the pipeline?
If you can tell us, that is.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, there's some really, really exciting plans bubbling away. We can't really talk much about it, but all I would say is follow us on socials, on our social media, and you'll be the first to know. So watch this space.
We'll stay tuned. We'll stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
One thing I wanted to ask, because you both kind of exude like this whole positive mindset. And obviously we've, on our previous podcast, we've spoken to lots of different people about positive mindset, the challenges of it. How do you both stay so like positive? Obviously, I know that we can all, you know, come across as positive as we want to be, but I know being entrepreneur and how challenging the journey is. You guys must have strategies for it, like, or whether you just help one another. What's your approach?
Yeah, we've actually spoken about that quite a bit, haven't we? Because we've had quite a roller coaster journey, I think, like probably every startup founder. And we actually have entered a bit of a manifestation era. We do quite a bit of journaling. We do gratitude lists. We try to get a lot of fresh air where we can. So when we're doing calls and things, we'll often be on the road walking. And I think that really helps in just kind of reflecting what went really well at the end of the week. What could we do better on? But remembering to celebrate those small wins. And well, we've both been reading a lot of kind of Bob Proctor's material, which is amazing. And I think if there's anything to take away from that, his kind of key message is, if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hands. And so really we're quite big on visualization, aren't we?
Yeah, I think it's the key thing for us. I think the key thing for us was, as Nikki mentioned, all of the things, but at the same time, because there's so much noise and so many things going around in your personal as well as your work life, it's very important for us to have that discipline and that organization. I think feeling organized is very, very important for us, especially for me. I think so I've kind of like my New Year's resolution and been working on like just being disciplining everything, keeping everything organized, so then, you know, you don't have a last minute panic and stuff like that. At the same time, manifestations, as we started doing that for the past, I would say, few months, and it has actually really, really worked, and it's actually had a really positive effect on both of our mental health as well. So
I think the other thing I wanted to ask is if you could speak to, say, some young entrepreneurs, what would be like your biggest piece of advice or biggest learning, or just something that you feel like, that's it, this is my statement?
For me, I would say just start, because that is the most difficult bit. And I think you can procrastinate and talk yourself out of things for so long. So I think when you're really young and you're kind of in your 20s, I look back and I think what would I tell my daughters? I think your 20s are about learning as much information as possible. Do all the jobs that nobody else wants to do, because you can learn so much from it, and work with people that you look up to and can kind of and see how they do things. And it's just like that learning phase. And then once you get to a stage where you think, right, I've got an idea and I really want to launch it, go for it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. and just start it and surround yourself with good people, people that you look up to, people that are positive, people that can help you with your growth mindset, because that will really help you on those down days, because you will get them and you'll get lots of them. And so it's just being able to overcome that and turn that creativity into something really successful and just keep going. Just don't give up if you really believe in it.
Yeah, I think I would absolutely second what Nikki said. I would say that like everybody's got ideas nowadays, but it just takes that leap of faith to actually dive deep into it and do something with it. So I would say that just believe in yourself, believe in your thoughts, your ideas, and take the leap of faith. Leave the rest into the hand of God. And second is, once you do what me and Nikki found was that in being an entrepreneur, as you know, you have to surround yourself with people, but at the same time, being in the industry, you need to have a solid network. And without that network, like it is so hard to navigate your way in. So I would say networking is also a very key thing in entrepreneurship. So yeah, that would be my 2 key takeaways.
That sentiment of just starting as you are now is so important, because whenever you're about to make something or start something, you always kind of question, well, maybe I'm not ready now, I'll wait, I need to learn more. But you can just start now, it's fine. Like you said, just feel the fear, but do it anyway. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I think as women, we do that more. I think we will think, okay, but there's a list of 10 things and I'm only good at one of those or whatever, so I'm not going to go for it. Whereas actually just focus on what you are good at and just do it, because if you have that belief in yourself and the belief in your idea, it will come good. You just have to keep going.
Just about crystallizing that idea.
Yeah, and once you do it, at least you would not have that regret in your life that you didn't do anything. That is very, like, to live with that regret is really hard. So just give it a go and see what happens.
Absolutely. So looking ahead, if you were to imagine KWERKY 5 years from now, what would you think success look like for both of you?
So very simply, I think we just want to be the #1 choice of plant milk across households and commercial kitchens across the planet. And I think from that, we know we would have done a great job on people's health. We know there'll be less ultra processed foods going into our systems, especially when you think about, milk powder in itself doesn't sound very sexy. But when you think about how much milk we actually consume at breakfast, in cereals, teas, coffees, throughout the day, because we are a nation of coffee and tea drinkers, maybe 3-4 times a day, in your lunches, your dinners, your bechamel sauces, your soups, your desserts, any baked goods, etc. We are consuming a lot of it. And so, if we can make that little change, that really helps people's health and the way they look at foods, and cook more wholesome meals, etc. And also being better for the planet as well. We know that we would have done that. We are up to 74% lower in carbon emissions than dairy. We use 88% less packaging than our competitors in the kind of liquid plant milk space. And there's so much less in terms of food miles, food processing, etc. So we know we'll be having a really great impact. And like we say, for every pouch sold, we're feeding a child in need. So again, we know that we've really helped some underprivileged children out there to get the nutrition. And I think the beautiful thing about Akshaya Patra and the work that they do in India is that they often are based in kind of really small villages where children don't go to school, and so they're trapped in this kind of circle of poverty. The fact that they'll get a free meal at school forces their parents to kind of say, go to school because you're going to get a healthy meal, and education almost becomes a byproduct of that, which sounds absolutely crazy, but there is so much good that is coming out of the work that they're doing, because they're actually going to school for that free meal and getting educated, and that could really change their trajectory later in life.
Sounds amazing. That does, yeah. I feel like we've well and truly quizzed you guys. Sorry. Yeah, it's been so great to hear all about Quirky, and more importantly, hearing about you guys.
No,
Thank
thank you
you.
very
Thanks
much.
very much.
Thanks for having us. An absolute
No,
Yeah, it's
honestly,
been great. Thank you.
been our pleasure, and yeah, we'll be really excited to hear about all the success you guys have in 2025 and beyond. Like, I'm on the
So are
link.
we.
We're there. We'll be listening in and liking everything and hearing all about it. So yeah, good luck
Thank
to you
you.
both.
That means a
Yes,
lot to us. Thank
absolutely.
you.